Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, ko titirangi te maunga, ko te whauta awa, ko Ngāti Pākehā te iwi, ko Karaparakura Horamia nei ho. Mr Speaker, this is the first opportunity to speak since Parakura's passing, and I'd like to add my short words to those of other colleagues who've spoken for him and acknowledge you and other members of this House who've honoured our colleague and friend in his passing last week. Mr Speaker, I wish to address the claims the member opposite has made. Mr Speaker, this is not Soviet Union economics. This exists in the United States. This is not North Korean economics. The single-buyer electricity model is handled in South Korea, currently one of the world's most successful economies. It's not bizarre, it's common EU policy. It's followed in many of the world's most successful developing tigers like Brazil, indeed countries like South Africa. It's widespread around the world. And why is that? Mr Speaker, because we have a problem. The electricity market is not working. It hasn't worked for a number of years, and successive governments have tried to fix it since Max Bradford wrecked it, and it hasn't worked. It doesn't work, sir, because it is declining gas and coal resources that are setting the price for the whole market. It hasn't worked because residential tariffs have skyrocketed while commercial and industrial tariffs have not, and that has widened the gap and meant that ordinary Kiwis are being ripped off. It hasn't worked because there are huge problems in the so-called free market. The spot market is so thin because the generators and the retailers co-own each other and only trade internally, not on the spot market. So you have the bizarre thing where the marginal unit of coal sets the whole price for the whole country through a spot market that doesn't work, and that, sir, is closer to Albania and North Korea than what Labor is proposing. Mr Speaker, the single-buyer model is one of three absolutely standard models around the world. The first one is a regulated market. Well, that's what we've tried, and it hasn't worked, and the current government doesn't have the foresight to see it. The second, sir, is a monopoly seller, or a single seller that is controlled. We had that in ECNZ. The previous government wrecked it. The regulated market can't now work, sir, because the government is privatising half of the Crown's power companies, meaning domestic price rises will be even more rampant in the future, and New Zealanders will be exposed. Mr Speaker, why does that matter? Well, as our leader David Shearer has said, it's the little people that get it in the neck. And, sir, I remember door-knocking a senior citizen village in Gleneden in my first campaign in winter, and I remember seeing senior citizens with their eider-downs pulled around their shoulders because they couldn't afford heating. They couldn't afford to turn on an electric blanket. That member may have his own insulation, Mr Speaker, but many, many Kiwis do not, and they require decent power prices to stay warm in the winter. Mr Speaker, it's very interesting what this debate is telling New Zealanders about the choices they will have next year, because as people can see, they will have real choices. A choice between a bunch of cronies of the so-called free market who have spent the last years giving tax cuts to the wealthy and blessing the worst rorts we have seen for generations. And on this side of the House, a team that is united behind the interests of ordinary New Zealanders, a team that is going to go forward, win government and deliver real change. This team is going to deliver lower prices, higher employment, greater social equity, fairer chances for New Zealanders and prosperity for all for many years to come. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Colin King.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It's rather sad, really, because when you listen